Things have suddenly got a lot stranger in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the addition of immaculately bearded King of Sarcasm, Doctor Strange. Played like the snarkiest alien magician ever by Benedict Cumberbatch, and quite frankly, the film is a visual delight that will make fans of Steve Ditko's iconic artwork explode in a shower of multicolored psychedelic goop. Here is a picture of Groot covered in multicolored psychedelic goop. And in case you're worried, yes, it does do justice to the comics. I'm Ben from What Culture, and here are 31 Easter eggs and comic book references from Doctor Strange. Number 31. Avengers Tower. Right at the start of the film, the camera pans over Strange's New York, and the iconic image of the Avengers Tower can be seen towering above the rest of the city. This is one of only a couple of Avengers nods. You won't find any mention of the Accords or the incident because they haven't actually happened in Strange's world yet. The start of the film appears to happen around the time of Iron Man 2. Nice of Strange to help out during the Ultron snafu then. Number 30. The Iron Man 2 reference. When Strange crashes his car, he's on a call about potential cases to take on, rejecting a poor old lady who would blemish his perfect record, and also a 35-year-old Marine colonel who crushed his lower spine in some sort of experimental armor. No, that's not Rhodey in Civil War. What it actually refers to is the soldier testing Justin Hammer's bootleg rip-off suits, who gets his spine twisted. We learn of that in Iron Man 2's courtroom scene. You're forgiven for not remembering. The film wasn't that good. Number 29. Strange's origin. Strange's origin is identical to the comics. In both cases, Strange is an egotist who has arrogance in spades and loves buying stuff. He's basically a cross between Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark. In short, he's a cocky which is made up for by his ability as a surgeon. Number 28. Strange in hospital. As in the comics, Strange is banged up horribly by his car crash and is forced to turn to other skilled surgeons to save his life and his bodily functions. Sadly, he fails, and we get a scene of Strange unconscious in hospital, clearly shot in homage to this cover shot, which comes from Uncanny X-Men's Brandon Peterson's run on Doctor Strange. Number 27. Strange's training. With his career ruined, Strange heads to Tibet to seek magical intervention. Tibet has always been a setting of part of his early backstory in the comics too, as in the film he went there to train, including a smattering of martial arts work. Number 26. Caecilius. Villain Caecilius is taken from the comics. He's not overly compelling though, and I suppose you could call him a Doctor Strange villain for whackers, hashtag Doctor Strange villain for whackers. He was originally a servant of Baron Mordo, but in the film he's actually more like an amalgamation of several characters, partly Mordo himself, as well as Black Mage Wizard Kalu and his master Dormammu. Number 25. The Book and Seal of Vishanti. The Seal of Vishanti is the symbol that emblazons the side of the sanctum in New York and covers the Eye of Agamotto, and has a sacred companion text, the Book of Vishanti. In the comics, the Vishanti are a trio of benevolent gods from the multiverse, with vast power who pass on said power to those they deem worthy, like the Ancient One and the Sorcerer Supreme himself. Number 24. Shambhala. When Strange is finally allowed to stay with the Ancient One, Mordo gives him the Wi-Fi password, LOL, which is revealed to be Shambhala. This harks back to the famous Doctor Strange storyline, Into Shambhala, in which Strange was given the chance to shepherd in a golden age for mankind, but at a cost so severe he couldn't bear to pay. Number 23. The pop culture references. The film oddly features a number of pop culture references when Doctor Strange is trying to break the ice with Wong. He asks if he has just a single name like Adele, and then proceeds to mention Bono, Eminem, and Drake, as well as Aristotle. And then later, when the pair meet again, Strange sasses Wong and mentions Beyoncé, who Wong seems not to recognize, only to be revealed in the next scene to be listening to her on his Walkman. Number 22. Night Nurse. Rachel McAdams plays the second iteration of Night Nurse to so far appear on screen in a Marvel project after Claire Temple in the Netflix shows. Her Christine Palmer was one of the trio of female nurses who were the stars of the female-centric comic released in the early 70s, focusing on night shift nurses. There's no hint she'll be using Night Nurse as a codename herself, but this is a truer reflection of the character's origin in the comics. Number 21. The links to the other Doctor Strange. There are some significant similarities between this film and the animated Doctor Strange from 2007. In both cases, Doctor Strange is taught personally by the Ancient One about reality warping, and by Wong. Strange also has a female sidekick, with Gina Atwater taking the place of Christine Palmer, and Baron Mordo is black and develops a resentment for what Strange and his fellow sorcerers have become. Number 20. Stan Lee's cameo. Strange creator Stan Lee appears this time as a bus passenger during one New York set effects-heavy sequence, reading a copy of The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. It's a hell of an in-joke too. The book details Huxley's experiences when taking mescaline and tripping, which is exactly what it feels like watching some of Doctor Strange's wilder sequences in the multiverse.
This doesn't make any sense.
Number 19. The Eye of Agamotto. The Eye of Agamotto is a massive part of the lore of Doctor Strange, and in both the comics and the film, the eye was used as a means to defeat Dormammu. The design remains rather similar to the comics, albeit with the addition of the seal of Ashanti over the top of the eye. It's important that it retained the fundamental design though, as Steve Ditko had drawn inspiration from the real-world charm, the all-seeing eye of the Buddha. Number 18. Wong. Long-term character Wong has been adapted from the comics, where he's a caricatured servant character, capable of fighting but not magic. Here, he's still a martial arts expert, but he's been elevated to a real sorcerer able to wield artifacts and cast spells. His comics universe father also appears, or a version of him, in the shape of Master Hamir, based on Hamir the Hermit, one of the sorcerers mentioned early on. Number 17. The Runaways. One of the mages at the Temple of Kamar-Taj is Tina Minoru, who links Doctor Strange to the Runaways comics universe, as she is the mother of Nico Minoru, one of the Runaways' heroes. In the comics, Nico wields a powerful magical weapon known as the Staff of One, which we also see Tina wield in the film. Number 16. The costumes. Both Doctor Strange and Mordo's outfits are very closely modeled on their traditional comic book looks. Doctor Strange looks almost exactly as fans of the comics would expect him to, including the white streaks in his hair and the flowing red cape. And Mordo's outfit takes in the traditional green robes he's always worn in the comics. It's a slightly toned-down version, but that sort of theatricality comes with real supervillainy. Number 15. The Avengers' role in the world. The second mention of the Avengers comes as a brief but clever explanation of why the sorcerers wouldn't have turned up to help with the incident or any other major attack on the real world. Wong tells Doctor Strange that while the Avengers protect the world from physical dangers, we safeguard it against more mystical threats. Number 14. Dormammu. Mamu is an old adversary for Doctor Strange, and the idea of Strange and other Sorcerer Supremes before him having to keep him out of the earthly realm is a big part of the comics, where he dwells in the dark dimension, seeking for a way to take over Earth. In the comics too, Strange and Dormammu are forced into a pact when Strange helps save the demon from the Mindless Ones, and Dormammu is forced to agree not to attack Earth ever again. Dormammu. Number 13. The Black Knight. As revealed before release, there was initially going to be an Easter egg specifically pointing to Marvel character the Black Knight. His sword, the Ebony Blade, was to be included but was removed according to Barry Gibbs, the prop master for the film. But the New York Sanctum did include lots of artifacts, and in the background there's definitely a helmet that looks suspiciously like an uncolored version of Black Knight's headwear. Number 12. The Cloak of Levitation equals magic carpet. In the comics, Doctor Strange's Cloak of Levitation is presented without any actual will of its own. In the film, this is extended somewhat to give the cloak more personality, and it definitely feels like the writers and animators went and watched Disney's Aladdin for tips on how to do that. To further confuse matters and make everyone who likes a daft shared universe theory more excited, Aladdin's dad looks almost exactly like Doctor Strange. Please no. Number 11. The Crimson Bands of Cyttorak. Even when Doctor Strange is struggling to actually show off the magic, he's capable of conjuring one of his most famous spells from the comics. The Crimson Bands of Cyttorak is a spell that sends red-colored bands of energy out of Strange's hands like whips to bind his enemies, and he's seen conjuring the spell while fighting Caecilius and his zealots at the New York Sanctum. Number 10. The Matrix. Come on now, they do share some similarities. In both cases, there's a reluctant chosen one, a mystical guide who educates him, a megalomaniac villain seeking more power for himself, and a mostly ignorant general public unaware of the magic happening around them. And there's no denying the Ancient One appears to have taken a page out of Morpheus's book by sending Strange down the rabbit hole to prove to him the reality of his existence. Number 9. Fantasia. According to cinematographer Ben Davis, Disney's experimental film Fantasia was a major visual influence on the film, although, strictly speaking, I'd say Strange's weird worlds are a lot more like Fantasia 2000, which was another level of psychedelia. Number 8. Drum. Master Daniel Drum, who protects the New York Sanctum, should be familiar to Marvel fans, having first appeared in Strange Tales in 1973. He was the original brother Voodoo before his twin brother Jericho took over, and both have frequently appeared in comic titles like Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, and Hulk. Number 7. The Wand of Watum. At the climax, Wong makes a final stand out in front of the Hong Kong Sanctum. During the fight, he's seen wielding what appears to be the Wand of Watum, another key magical artifact from the comics, as it was the center of the first story uniting the Sorcerer Supreme with Spider-Man. Number 6. The Infinity Stone. Quelle surprise! The Eye of Agamotto is actually an infinity stone. Specifically, it is the Time Stone, which allows the user the vision of possible futures, time travel, and control over the age of beings. It can also be used as a weapon by trapping enemies or entire worlds in unending loops of time, as Strange does with Dormammu when he meets the creature. Number 5. The Other Realm Design. The design of the multiverse is absolutely stunning. As the Stanley Easter egg hints, it's also a hell of a trippy experience too, and there's obviously been a great deal of attention paid to Steve Ditko's outrageous psychedelic designs from the comics. In particular, Ditko's fondness for alien-looking spheres with tentacles is a big part of the movie's multiverse. Number 4. Mordo's heel turn. Despite the way he views Caecilius' betrayal of the Ancient One, Mordo eventually ends up going the same way, albeit with more morally good intentions. He wants to police the way sorcerers act and stop them from interfering with the natural order after he's horrified at Doctor Strange's use of the Eye of Agamotto to turn back time. That, of course, mirrors what happens in the comics, as he turns on the Ancient One and Strange and tries to repeatedly wipe them out. Number 3. The mid-credits. In the mid-credits sequence, Strange meets Thor and reveals that he believes him to be a threat, and that Loki's presence in London is bothering him. Presumably, since Thor is now aware that his brother is alive, both are looking for their missing father, this is a scene picked out of the middle of Thor Ragnarok, just as the post-credits stinger on Ant-Man was a scene taken from Civil War. Number 2. The post-credit stinger. In the stinger, Mordo visits Jonathan Pangborn, who revealed to Strange that the Ancient One had the power to help him, as he himself was a paraplegic whose health was restored using magic. Mordo believes this to be another act of abomination and undoes the work, leaving Pangborn paralyzed, and declares he will be solving the world's sorcerer problem. The final note on the credits also reads, Doctor Strange will return. Good. And number 1, Benedict Cumberbatch's cameo. Yes, you heard that correctly. Benedict Cumberbatch does indeed have a non-Doctor Strange cameo in Doctor Strange. As confirmed by director Scott Derrickson to IGN, Cumberbatch provided the voice and facial capture for Dormammu. And that's our list. Are there any Easter eggs we missed off? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can even follow me here on Twitter if you fancy. I'm Ben from What Culture, and thanks for watching.